Good morning, Mission Gathering, and happy Palm Sunday. Pastor Brandon here. And before we get further along into our service, and before Pastor Wendy digs into the message for this week, today I wanted to ask the question, what is Palm Sunday? Today, around the world, billions of Christians will be celebrating Palm Sunday, the start of Holy Week, the week leading up to the death and the resurrection of Jesus, celebrated on Easter Sunday next week. But what exactly is Palm Sunday, and why do we celebrate it? Palm Sunday is a reference to the day that Jesus rode into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, and the people of Jerusalem came out to the streets and threw palm branches in front of Jesus' donkey as if he was a king coming into the city. This is what it says in the Gospel of Matthew chapter 21. It says, as they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus said to the disciples, "Go into the village and find a donkey, and untie the donkey and bring it to me. If anyone says anything to you, say that the Lord needs them, and he will send them right away." This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. Say to daughter Zion, see that your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, on the colt, the foal of a donkey. So the disciples went and did just as Jesus asked them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their coats on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from trees and spread them on the road. The crowds went ahead of him, and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest!" When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city asked, "Who is this?" And the crowds answered, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." This is the beginning of Holy Week, the week that Jesus enters into the city of Jerusalem, preparing for his trial, his arrest, his death, and his resurrection on Sunday. But what's interesting about this story is that for a majority of the people in Jerusalem, Jesus wasn't seen as a king. He wasn't even seen as a legitimate prophet. He was somebody who was stirring up trouble both within the Jewish religious establishment and in the political establishment of the Greco-Roman world. What's interesting about this story is that this entry marks a turn in the consciousness of the Jewish people living in Jerusalem. They're beginning to see Jesus as the Messiah. But as I talked about last week in my sermon, this Messiah that they're expecting Jesus to be isn't the one that he turns out to be. Jesus is a Messiah who shows that the way of the kingdom comes through self-sacrificial love for the good of your friend and neighbor and enemy. The Jewish people were expecting a Messiah that was going to come and overturn the Jewish religious establishment and the Greco-Roman political establishment that was oppressing them. See, Jesus failed their expectations by all stretch of the imagination. He failed to be the political ruler that they think he is as he's riding into Jerusalem right now in a very kingly manner on the back of a donkey with people throwing their coats and palm branches on the street yelling Hosanna. This is a triumphal entry meant for a king. But what Jesus is going to reveal this week is that the king and the kingdom that he represents doesn't come through power or force, but through self-sacrificial love and subversive acts of kindness and service. See, Jesus is a truly different kind of king. And this Palm Sunday, as we celebrate the beginning of Holy Week and Jesus' entry into Jerusalem as he makes his way to the cross, may we remember that this kingdom that we're a part of and this king that we worship, King Jesus, is a different kind of king. While we might be looking for our hope in political rulers or social rulers, we know that our hope only comes through the way of service, the way of sacrifice, and the way of love, the way that Jesus demonstrated. So as we celebrate Palm Sunday today, as we reflect on Jesus as our King, let's remember the way of Jesus' kingdom is radically subversive. Happy Palm Sunday, Mission Gathering. Now let's get back to worship.